Good morning, dear listeners. Today we have a new episode of the Ontology 7 Laws of Reality podcast series, and today we speak a little bit more in depth about the principle of rhythm, also called the principle of cyclicity. So, this principle embodies the truth that everything in the physical, mental, and spiritual dimension expresses itself in rhythm, from action to reaction, from activity to inactivity, and with a to and from a movement. So a flow and an inflow, an out and an in, a swing forward and a backward, so an advance and a retreat. So the very essence of the play of reality itself is always a spontaneous outpouring and indrawing of energy manifestation. And this is the principle of rhythm. So the principle of rhythm or cyclicity is connected to the principle of polarity, which we have already spoken about in a previous podcasts, and it usually manifests between the two poles described in the principle of polarity. So the swing of rhythm is not necessarily to the extreme poles, but simply it can be towards first one pole and then the opposite in varying levels and degrees. So we can observe this principle in the creation and destruction of worlds and universes, the rise and the fall of the tides, rise and fall of nations and cultures, basically in all life history and everything on earth, but also in the human heart and the breathing in and out of the lungs. And also in the mental states of sentient beings, there is always an alternation and a rhythm. So the rhythmic motion is not necessarily always in a straight line, but in fact these motions are usually in cycles. So rhythms become cycle. Cyclicity is only a more complex form of rhythm, and it's dependent on the rhythm itself. And so cyclicity happens when the action and reaction, the attraction and the repulsion arising from the conflict between the force of the rhythmic swing in a straight line on one hand and the attractive and repellent forces from without on the other hand tend to swing the movement in a perfect circle around a central point of motion, manifesting the universal tendency to convert the straight path of the swing into a circular path or a cycle. And proof of this is the movements of small and large bodies in the physical universe, like the electrons around the atoms and the planets around the suns and the galaxies around the universe, which perpetually resolve in a circle around the same given center point, continuing cyclic revolutions due to the principle of rhythm and cyclicity, and not falling to the center. So all living things, including sentient beings, are born, grow and die, and then are reborn, always completing a full cycle in rhythmic fashion. And the same applies to all great movements, philosophies, beliefs, fashions, governments, manifesting birth, growth, maturity, decadence, death, and then a new birth. So the cycle always completes itself, and this is a law. And also the mind of sentient beings, the succession of moods, feelings, and other state of consciousness manifests following the principle of rhythm and cyclicity. So in the Tibetan tradition, for example, it is said that if a member of one's family died at a particular age or a particular time of year, then at that age or that time of the year, all members of the family are susceptible to death because of the tendency of events to recur in a cyclic patterns. So anyway, it's easy to observe the law of rhythm because this affects us throughout our lives, and we have period of enthusiasm and then opposite feelings, mood of depression, etc., always in rhythmic fashion, always alternating. And in fact it's actually normal to feel these ups and downs as the expression of the law of rhythm. So one should accept this because it's law. It's the one of the law of mind and the law of the universe. But we can learn how to escape, sort of sort of escape from cyclicity in the process of transmutation into spiral movements. And this is accomplished by advancing the central point of motion. And on a universal scale, the central point is advanced in the cosmos spontaneously by the will of reality, urging forward the entire cosmic process, and thus converting the cyclic trend into a spiral trend, onwards and upwards, in advancing and rising circles towards progression. And then this progression is then reversed backward to its starting point with a process of regression, and so on ad infinitum. So it's always in rhythmic fashions. The cyclicity becomes a spiral and the circle is closed. So that's why any permanent advancement can only be achieved by an individual transmutation of cyclicity into a spiral movement, advancing the central point of motion by the individualized will of mind, and while apparently traveling around in perpetual circles like an average person, one will find oneself at a stage higher at each turn of the cycle in a spiral path, and that is to self-realization. So when the perpetual cycle of same old events and mind patterns is transformed into a spiral movement, then real progress is possible. This is not easy because the vast amount of old causes and conditions, according to the law of cause and effect, they're producing the same effects, beating one down like a hammer on a pin. But then one needs to use one's own intentional will to progress and to sort of escape this cyclic movement in a spiral, transmuted into a spiral movement. So for today it's all. Thank you for listening. More information can be found in the books, and the links are in the comments.